All of this, Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin is joining us. He's the chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee. Mr. Chairman, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Wolf.
If Michael Flynn did in fact do this, in other words, have this conversation with the Russian ambassador to the United States, discuss sanctions, basically passed along word, don't worry so much about the sanctions, because once President Trump takes office, there's going to be a new era in U.S.-Russian relations, all this happening during the tail end of the Obama administration. Do you think he does need to step down?
Well, Wolf, that's an awful lot of ifs. You're aware, of course, his position is not a Senate confirmable position. I have not been privy to any of those conversations, and all I really know is what I've heard in the news reports. And so from my standpoint, this is really a matter within the administration. This is a decision for the president to make, not me.
We just got a statement literally this minute from the White House press secretary, Sean Spicer. Let me read it to you. The president is evaluating the situation. The statement says he's speaking to the vice president relative to the conversation the vice president had with General Flynn, and also speaking to various other people about what he considers the single most important subject there is, our national security. That doesn't sound like a complete vote of confidence, as we heard from Kellyanne Conway just a little while ago. Does it to you?
Well, again, I'm sure he's trying to find out what General Flynn told the vice president, what really General Flynn's recollections were. He wasn't privy to those conversations either, so he's probably gathering the facts. I've always thought that telling the truth is the best policy.
Because it's very strange, and I wonder if you'd get into this a little bit with me. Just within the past hour, the counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, says the president has full confidence in Michael Flynn. Then within an hour, the White House press secretary comes out once again with this statement saying the president is evaluating the situation. Those are two very different statements. What does that say to you?
Probably the same thing it says to you. I'm not privy to the conversations. It's really not my role to advise and consent on this particular position, so I'll leave that up to the president. He'll get to the bottom of it and he'll make his determination.
As the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee and a member of the Foreign Relations Committee, I assume this is the subject of interest.
Well, what I'm primarily concerned is the actual substance of, for example, what North Korea is doing, the slaughter in Syria, Russia aggression in Ukraine. So I'm more concerned about that as opposed to the palace intrigues occurring right now in the Trump administration. So, I'm happy to discuss the real problem that, for example, North Korea poses in Asia and potentially in our homeland eventually.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to get to that. But the only point I'm making is that the National Security Advisor to the president advises the president on all of these most sensitive national security issues. So you want to make sure that that person is responsible, doing the right thing, not giving false information, for example, to the vice president of the United States, who then goes on television and repeats false information. But let's talk.
Well, let me tell you what I also want to do is I want to make sure that President Trump gets his cabinet confirmed. Right now, this is probably the slowest confirmation process in U.S. history in terms of the president being able to establish his governing cabinet, and that's something we really need to do. He needs to get his advisors in place, and Democrats, of course, are obstructing that process.
I think you raised some legitimate questions. Look, these issues that have been coming up waste a lot of critically important time, especially when there are critical national security issues on the agenda right now. Let's talk about North Korea for a moment. You heard our report, Jim Sciutto, reporting that when the president was briefed Saturday night on this ballistic missile firing by the North Koreans, he was having dinner with the visiting Japanese prime minister, and then they began reviewing sensitive documents, you see, with flashlights from portable and cell phones, and they were discussing all these issues. There were servers going by, guests going by. Is that a source of concern to you that they would be discussing North Korea, which arguably is the most important, the greatest national security risk facing the United States right now, in the middle of all of this?
Well, I'm not sure that anything came out of that. Let's face it, the President of the United States is the final authority in terms of what is classified and what needs to be revealed publicly. So, again, that'll be his determination. But, again, I'm highly concerned about North Korea. We held a hearing in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and this laid out the basic facts for a number of administrations. Literally for decades, nobody has been able to bring North Korea to heel. Nobody has been able to modify their march toward becoming a nuclear power and then gaining the missile capabilities of actually delivering a weapon potentially in the near future to our homeland. So that is something we need to be concerned about. The conclusion of our hearing, by the way, at least from my standpoint, was diplomacy has not worked, probably won't work. There are a number of high-level defections, or they're beginning to be high-level defections from Korea. We need to encourage those. We need to provide safe haven for those individuals. Hopefully that regime will eventually collapse, or we need to seriously consider taking kinetic action against some of these ballistic missile tests.
Well, don't you agree, though, Senator, that if, for example, you were at a dinner and your staff said there's sensitive information involving North Korea, we need to discuss this, it's best that you leave that table where there are a lot of guests, a lot of servers walking around. Let's go into a secure room and discuss this. Shouldn't the president have done that?
Again, I'm not going to second guess the president. I don't know exactly what the sensitive information was. I don't think anything's come out of that was overly sensitive. We know what North Korea did, and we ought to be discussing the substance and the danger of North Korea progressing down this path of having missile systems that could deliver a nuclear weapon to our homeland. That's what we really ought to be discussing. It's a real danger.
So what should the president do about this North Korean threat?
Well, again, I think we need to encourage more defections from that regime, certainly offer safe haven for people who are willing to defect, and I think we need to put ourselves in a position to strengthen defenses of certainly South Korea, Japan, and we ought to seriously consider, from my standpoint, drawing a red line and saying anytime North Korea engages in another ballistic missile test, we're going to fire it, we're going to knock it down.
Senator, we have more to discuss, including there are new developments involving the president's travel ban. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Let's bring back Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. Senator, the president told reporters he will, quote, win the battle, talking about the travel ban executive order, then said they were looking at all sorts of options, including a brand new order. But if there is such an imminent threat right now that, in his words, bad dudes are rushing into the United States, should he just rewrite it and get on with it?
Well, first of all, I think the travel ban was a reasonable precaution. And, you know, the president has vast powers when it comes to refugees. For example, President Obama decided to let in 10,000 Syrian refugees just by consulting with Congress. He made the decision, consulted with Congress. Nobody challenged him. You know, we might have said whether we thought that was wise or not, but we thought he certainly had the legal authority to do so. And, of course, presidents are certainly charged with the authority to keep this nation safe. So I think we have to, run this process out. We have to establish, it's very important that President Trump has, and any president has, this power and authority. And so I'm a little concerned about what's happening right now through the legal system, but that's why I would certainly support a better crafted executive order, probably better implemented, because we have to establish, really, the president has to have this authority.
But let me follow up, because as you know, the president, he cites what he calls tremendous threats to the country right now. He said, and I'm quoting him, we need speed for reasons of security. You're the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. Is he citing new specific threats?
I know of no specific threat, but let's face it, Wolf, the threat of Islamic terror is real, it's growing, it's metastasizing, it's evolving. The fact of the matter is the Center of Immigration Studies did show that there are more than 70 people involved in and certainly charged with, some of them convicted of basically fomenting terrorist activity here in the United States from those 7 countries. So yes, this is a danger. We certainly need to continue reviewing our vetting process in terms of refugees, visa waiver program. But from my standpoint, if I'm concerned about ISIS operatives coming into America, I'm still concerned primarily about them coming through our very porous southern border, which also needs to be secured.
What about the northern border with Canada? There's a 3,000-mile frontier between the U.S. and Canada.
Well, it's certainly one of the reasons we held a hearing on Prime Minister Trudeau's acceptance under very rushed circumstances of more refugees from Syria for exactly that same reason. But our primary concern is our very poor southern border.
President Trump described these latest ICE raids, in his word, he called it a crackdown, saying today, he said today at the news conference, he said, we will get the bad ones. But Democrats are concerned. As you know, California Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein put out this statement. These reports show the serious consequences of the president's executive order, which allows all undocumented immigrants to be categorized as criminals and requires increased enforcement in communities rather than prioritizing dangerous criminals. Is that the case? Are all undocumented immigrants right now being categorized as criminals and could be picked up and deported?
No, I believe the Trump administration, under the leadership of Secretary Kelly now, is, again, still prioritizing gang members, drug dealers, human traffickers, criminals. They are still prioritizing that, but they're just stepping up enforcement activity. I don't think the Obama administration did adequately enforce our immigration laws. This administration will.
Senator Johnson, thanks very much for joining us.
Have a great day.